This is macOS Ken.
Trying to untangle the Bloomberg bramble, we got a date for Apple's next earnings report, and the App Store's anti-social for one social network. It is Thursday, the 29th of September, 2022. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Trade Coffee. Get $30 off your first order plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Variation on a theme. It's not just me. Yesterday, I told you of a post from Bloomberg under the headline, Apple ditches iPhone production increase after demand falters. I also questioned the headline's assertion, since everything I had seen had indicated that sales for the iPhone 14 in terms of units had for weeks, maybe months, been expected to match sales of iPhone 13. No more, no less. Happy to say, it's not just me. A few analysts responded Wednesday to Bloomberg's story with reactions ranging from huh to nuh-uh. We'll start with Twitter, where we find TF International analyst Ming-Chi, quote, questioning/refuting the report. He says the report sounds a little bit weird. That is a quote. In a series of tweets, the analyst said that Apple had production switch plans from iPhone 14, 14 Plus to iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, but he hadn't heard anything about an overall iPhone production increase plan. He also indicates that Apple might be cranking out more iPhone 13s than previously intended. While noting lackluster demand for the consumer end of the line, the analyst reiterated his forecast of a 10% increase in sales for this year's Pro phones, leading to a higher average selling price, or ASP, for iPhone in the December quarter. He then doubles down on unit numbers staying the same, saying the order increase for iPhone 14 Pro, 14 Pro Max, and price cut 13 could offset the potential order cut of iPhone 14 and 14 Plus. That keeps him expecting iPhone unit numbers to be flat. All of that said, he says, I predict that Apple will likely offer a positive outlook for fourth quarter 22 at the next earnings call, assuming iPhone shipments won't decline significantly starting December. Now, I cryptically called for a rough day for Apple shares after the Bloomberg report. That was the "Have a good Wednesday" comment I made yesterday. Not cryptic at all in such a prediction was Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives. Apple 3.0 posted part of a note he wrote Wednesday, I assume before the markets opened. His concern was that the negative Bloomberg news, in light of an already shaky macro and jittery market, would send shockwaves across the street, with investors concerned this is another shoe to drop in this dark market with golden child Apple front and center. Quick aside, it only played out that way for Apple. A piece from Reuters illustrates that, saying Wall Street ended sharply higher on Wednesday following its recent sell-off, helped by falling Treasury yields, while Apple dropped on concerns about demand for iPhone. Ives was not a fan of the Bloomberg piece, arguing that the headline of not increasing production, about 6 million units, overshadows the underlying story for iPhone 14 Pro demand that is currently playing out in the field. After pointing to high rates of adoption for iPhone 14's Pro end versus the consumer side, and what that'll mean for iPhone ASPs, the analyst addressed the fewer iPhones information, saying, as we have discussed, initial iPhone 14 units was roughly 90 million and is in line with iPhone 13, and that remains firm, unchanged. However, the mix is heavily shifted towards Pro, while the base model iPhone sales have clearly been underwhelming and softer than Apple expected. Mr. Ives has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $220. One more analyst calling bull nanigans on the Bloomberg story was Morgan Stanley's Eric Woodring. Apple Insider had him doing the Daniel Ives thing, pointing to long waits for the higher-priced iPhone 14 Pro phones. The piece also had the analyst indicating that the build estimates for the iPhone 14 are in line with his firm's predictions for production. Predictions for production is my system of a down cover band, by the way. We're Friday night at the Rickshaw, 9 p.m. Tell your friends. While we're never, ever, ever going to hear iPhone unit sales numbers from Apple again, ever, we will get some much-craved color from the company in just under a month. Apple let the planet know Wednesday when it will report fourth quarter fiscal year 2022 revenue and earnings. Would you like for me to tell you? Do you want to know? Do ya? Okay. Apple's investor page says those are set for Thursday, the 27th of October. They will be released via press release after the closing bell. Then roughly half an hour later, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, execs will hop on the phone with analysts for a good old-fashioned chin wag. You can listen to that as it happens on Apple's site. The company will make it available as a podcast soon after, and we will hit lights both high and low on Friday, the 28th of October. And if you missed any of that, don't worry, I will be repeating it a lot between now and the 27th of October. It was a fairly busy day on Twitter for TF International analyst Ming-Chi Kuo. After calling the Bloomberg assertions into question and stressing strength for the Pro end of the iPhone 14 line, he took a couple of tweets to do something between extrapolation and prognostication. The first he used to once again point to strength seen for Apple's latest Pro phones. That led to the second tweet's prediction. I think this result will encourage Apple to create more differentiation between iPhone 15 Pro Max and 15 Pro to raise 15 Pro Max shipments and enhance the iPhone product mix. iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Ultra, iPhone 15 Ultra Pro. Whatever. He also had thoughts on Apple Car. Busy Twitter day, as I say. One tweet this time, short and tweet. My latest survey indicates that Apple will likely build the new Apple Car project team before the end of 2022. Happy holidays. An interesting story Wednesday about Apple and its silicon supplier, TSMC. The Mac Observer highlights a report that originated with the Taiwanese site UDN. According to that, TSMC planned to raise its chip prices by 6% to 9%. That is a plan that Apple has reportedly refused. You can see where TSMC would think it could do that. It is, as the piece points out, the world's leading advanced semiconductor manufacturer. It also supplies all of Apple's significant processors at this point. At the same time, business with Apple accounts for more than a quarter of TSMC's total revenue, so you could see where Apple could think it could refuse the increase. Honestly, it could be that Apple doesn't want to be punished for the sins of others. According to TMO, TSMC has struggled with understanding real demand for its products recently. Clients have been prone to ordering more chips than needed, hoping to secure production line space during a time of semiconductor shortage. When demand for the client's products fails to coalesce, they cancel those orders. While Apple may not have been one to cancel orders, the piece continues, TSMC reportedly hoped to increase prices for all of its clients in order to prevent such abandoned orders. Whatever the case, TMO says it sounds like Apple is confident enough in its importance to TSMC's bottom line that it can refuse to pay more, because what you really want in uncertain economic times is a spitting contest. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Trade Coffee. I have been walking down memory lane, looking over the macOS Ken collection, at drinktrade.com/macOSKen. I mentioned the personalities of the roasters earlier this week. Well, looking through the macOS Ken collection, seeing the bags and reading the names takes me back to some of the best coffees I have ever made. Night Moves by Airship, Nebula by Mother Tongue, Bark at the Moon by Drink Coffee, Do Stuff. Here's how all this happened. I filled in a coffee quiz and Trade started sending me great coffee. They partner with top independent roasters to freshly roast and send the best coffees in the country straight to you as often as you like. I rated the coffees they sent me, and based on that, they have made a collection that they think you'll love too. These coffees are rich, complex, and dark. If that's not your thing, don't worry. Trade will have whatever it is you want. You can shop their most popular coffees by roast or flavor profile, or you can take their coffee quiz and get expertly matched with coffees you will love. So if you want to support small businesses and brew the best cup of coffee you have ever made at home, it is time to try Trade Coffee. Right now, Trade is offering macOS Ken listeners a total of $30 off your first order plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/macOSKen. That's drinktrade.com/macOSKen for $30 off your subscription to coffees I am sure you're gonna love. That's drinktrade.com/macOSKen for $30 off. And thanks to Trade Coffee for sponsoring today's show. As day follows night, so public testing betas follow developer betas. I told you Wednesday of Apple seeding betas of iOS, macOS, iPadOS, watchOS, and tvOS to developers. Now a couple of pieces from Mac Rumors have the Cupertino company making new betas of iOS and iPadOS 16.1 available to its public testing program, along with the 7th public beta of macOS 13 Ventura. Apple has removed the app for the Russian social network VK from the App Store worldwide. A piece from TechCrunch says the company made the move to comply with UK law. The piece quotes a statement from Apple saying, "These apps are being distributed by developers majority-owned or majority-controlled by one or more parties sanctioned by the UK government. In order to comply with these sanctions, Apple terminated the developer accounts associated with these apps, and the apps cannot be downloaded from any app store, regardless of location. Users who have already downloaded these apps may continue to use them." Of course, the apps won't be updated. Additionally, the piece says there may be problems with payments and notifications. For its part, the Russian social network said in a blog post that VK will continue to develop and support applications for iOS. Our experts do everything to maintain and continue to improve user comfort. The Russian government, meanwhile, seems a little bit less stiff upper lip. After the app's removal, a piece from Apple Insider had Russian regulators saying that the app's removal will impair communications between its citizens. Regulators called the app's removal discriminatory and are said by the piece to be demanding answers. No word on what exactly that demand entails, nor on a timeline for answering to it. And finally today, if you're looking for a musical way to end your week, plan to be near an Apple device tomorrow. Apple Insider ran a piece earlier this week saying that Billie Eilish will end her latest tour Friday, the 30th of September, on Apple Music Live. According to the report, the concert will be streamed live from the O2 Arena in London. Despite that assertion, that sounds like another one of these live, not really live things. Apple Insider says the show kicks off on Apple Music at 10 p.m. Eastern. That'll be 3 in the morning in foggy London town. Hey, maybe it'll be live, but my thinking is, no. Today on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast, an intervention call and a secret science project. Financial analyst Rob Black is first up, talking iPhone and Bloomberg and all sorts of Apple stuff. Then TMO's Nick DeCorville lets us in on his secret Apple Watch experiment. That's all today on the Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer, online at macobserver.com or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Trade Coffee. Get $30 off your first order plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/macOS Ken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOS Ken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.